okay for Rhode Island. Thus far, our state leadership hasn't listened to riders, employers, providers, and institutions, each in turn, standing and speaking to the impacts these cuts will have. I know several of you as board members did come to listen to public testimony, and thank you for that. The letter from the governor shows he did not read the same report I did. He offered a lot of platitudes to himself and very little to the room. His salary is up more than the 1.16% that RIPTA costs are over the same time. Our adjacent neighbors have found ways to fund their transit systems. In the end, there is no way to save money offered here without cutting buses. The transit master plan is being treated as a wish list. The impact on the carbon reduction plan is being ignored, and most critically, the rider impact is being treated as unavoidable. Mobility is freedom, and as though the governor and the leadership wants to build stuff quietly ignoring the needs of their constituents, that freedom could not be assured for anyone outside of home. Thank you for your report.
Thank you.
Next is Daniel Blanchett. On deck is Billy Giles.
Good morning. Thank you for this chance for us to speak. For those of you who weren't here at the well-attended public meeting in Pawtucket, my name is Daniel Blanchett. I live in Pawtucket over near the 76. I'm at Bruce, which according to the service cut, which thank goodness you're delaying the vote on. The 76 would have been one of the ones that was being eliminated. Thus preventing me from getting me to my job, which I work as an aisle captain at the Veterans Memorial Auditorium, or the VEX for short, in Providence, which is conveniently not far from the State House. While you're taking another look at the service cuts and delaying the vote, I would suggest, even if you have to disturb them during the weekend, and considering that Pawtucket is one of the communities that is being affected, I would suggest be in constant dialogue with the city of Pawtucket. I'm sure the mayor's office and various agencies would be willing to help out because Pawtucket is changing. They're trying to do all sorts of plans to rejuvenate the city as a result of turning it around from the current doldrums. A lot of the routes in the 70 to 80 block intersect through Pawtucket anyway, connecting many neighborhoods together, including quite a few of the east-west routes. Pawtucket east of the Blackstone, as some of you already heard when you heard me speak at the public meeting, is already underserved as is. I'm sure there are plenty of ways for the city to help out, whether it be to work in with their current development plans or for some of their big name projects, such as the construction of the new Pawtucket High School, by merging Tolman, Shea, and the Jackie Walsh Arts High School. While strongly imploring you to try and avoid the cuts in Pawtucket as much as possible, I'm sure that Pawtucket would do everything they could to accommodate you guys in terms of flexibility, in terms of creative interpretation, in terms of the transit master plan, as well as with some of the other things that happened during the life of the city. I know that the Arts Festival is going to be coming up while coming on this way on the 76. I saw banners for the Greek Festival that will be taking place. I know that the train station that is the hub is being well used, thank goodness. And those are my comments for now.
Thank you very much.
Next is Billy Giles with Robin Veritas to follow.
Good morning. My name is Billy Giles. I represent the Providence Streets Coalition and the Safe Route Coalition. And I'm grateful for your decision today to be able to vote on the proposed cuts. It's the right thing to do in the wake of 2 weeks of an outpouring of devastating stories. We've heard from people who will surely lose their jobs. We've heard from people, students who will not be able to get to school. We've heard from many, many seniors who would be stranded in their homes. As was made clear from the testimony from the hearings, the proposed service cuts would not right-size this agency, as you said, and as Robert has said, which which is, by the way, an incredibly tone-deaf way to describe these cuts. Rather, it would cripple aimlessly. The governor's letter does nothing to assure me or any of the advocates that he has any interest in investing in public transit to the levels, to the proper levels. This administration continues to time and again be out of touch with reality, shortchanging bus riders, forcing RIPTA to dig through couch cushions to find efficiencies, trying to get blood from the stones.
Yep.
As we've seen from the operational efficiency studies, and as Mr. Finley points out, RIPTA is already an efficient agency, and none of the factoring to overcome the massive deficit left by the governor for his hands. RIPTA already has a lower than average administrative costs compared to other agencies. Cutting the administrative staff is not the solution to this massive problem. We need these staff members to get the budget on the road. Additionally, there would be follow-on revenue losses in fare box recovery and advertising on the services we just happen to hear about. I do want to thank the RIPTA staff for their compassion and what was a very difficult process for them. I'm sure that for many of them, it was the worst moment of their careers. Chris, thank you for listening to every rider who took time out of their busy lives to tell their story. And know that for each one of them who came out to the hearings, dozens, hundreds, maybe thousands are in their place, unable to get around, safe, stranded due to the failure of the McKee administration to maintain this vital service for all of them.
Thank you.
Next is Ron Moritas with Randall Rose to follow.
Thank you. I won't repeat what we probably all heard from various riders, including my mom last night. Thank you, Mr. Duran. I think you're probably one of the people who's helped turn this place around a little bit. Clearly, this is a political issue, and I think that there are probably some folks around this table who are feeling the pain, and there are probably some others who aren't because they're possibly more concerned about their political careers and their ties perhaps to the governor. His letter is garbage. It's gaslighting. It's gaslighting. And there were quite a few phrases used today. Resizing? No, layoffs. You think for 1 minute that people will not end up homeless, losing their homes, losing their mortgages, perhaps dying? Don't kid yourself. Expand employer partnerships, revenue. Have these things been in place? Or are we just now finding out that this is what would help? Now that we're here at the 11th hour, at the edge of the cliff. If you think it's easy, pick up your car keys. Go to Walmart and get one of those carts and haul it off the bus, if you have one, and live like that for a change. And then you'll feel what it's like. Because people who are taking the bus are already struggling. And now you want to take that away. So I will repeat what I said last night. RIPTA is not a bus ride, it's a lifeline. When you go to sleep tonight, think about that phrase. It's a lifeline. It's an elderly person, they might get to the doctors, but guess what? Maybe they have lab work next week. Maybe it's February. And now the bus may not even be there. Good luck sleeping, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Randall Road and then Representative Teresa Fantasia.
Hello, my name's Randall Rose. I'm from the Kennedy Plaza Resilience Coalition. I see there's no microphone, so I will just speak up. Okay. So, we all know these cuts are going to be very serious for bus riders, and I'm disappointed that cuts and fare hikes are still on the table. A lot of people came today to speak the public comment was moved an hour and a half later than was planned, so some of the people who were planning to speak today had to leave. Many people have shown up at the hearings and at yesterday's rally, and they've been saying, we cannot have bus cuts. We cannot have these cuts. This is destroying people's way of life and ability to get to work, leaving senior citizens stuck at home. A lot of people bought their houses because they chose their home because it was on a bus line. This is going to take away the value of people's homes. These cuts are really bad ideas, but as we've all said before, these decisions are not made by the board, they are made by the top state leaders. I mean specifically Governor McKee and Speaker Shekarchi, both of whom have spoken positively about the idea of service cuts and fare hikes, including in this letter. This letter from the governor says the efficiency study recommended fare hikes. That is not what the efficiency study said. The efficiency study said that RIPTA pointed out fare hikes would not be a good thing. Fare hikes at RIPTA would take away some passenger ridership and cause less revenue, wouldn't cause an increase in revenue, and the efficiency study doesn't dispute that. It just says, well, maybe we won't, it doesn't dispute that. It doesn't call for fare hikes on the fixed routes. It just says maybe fare hikes on microtransit. So citing the efficiency study as if it justifies fare hikes in fixed routes is a complete misreading. It's clear that the people who make the decisions in the state, Governor McKee and Speaker Shekarchi, are not fully engaged on the issue. So far, they just been voicing things that are not informed. They say use smaller buses, even though smaller buses do not save any money. They say cut management in RIPTA, even though RIPTA has a lot of vacant management positions. These suggestions are not realistic, and we are going to continue pressuring the governor and the speaker, the people who make the decisions, because they are responsible for the suffering that will be caused by these cuts. They're trying to fudge the issue. They're saying we'll just have smaller cuts, but these cuts are not tolerable, and there is an election next year, and bus riders will remember. Riders have a vote, riders care about this, and riders' family members care about this. Bus riders are loved. It's not just the riders themselves who vote on this, it's the people who have riders and their families. And RIPTA helps connect the community together. Without RIPTA service, people are going to be stuck in a much smaller geographical area. This is already a small state. They'll be confined to a smaller area. And RIPTA helps knit us together into a community so that everybody can participate. So I hope that when Speaker Shekarchi and Governor McKee get more engaged in the issue, they will realize that these cuts are not acceptable, and they will change their mind. It's clear they're not fully engaged. I can kind of forgive them for saying the wrong things now, but we hope that they will come to reason, realize that these cuts are bad ideas before they go into effect and before the next election. And if the cuts do get to go into effect, we will be fighting back and trying to get them reversed because the election will matter. Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Tanzi, followed by Walter Malone.
Thank you, members and chair. I just want to start by saying that we cannot, by someone in this room today saying that we cannot trust the outcome of this study, because we cannot trust that any transit system is run efficiently, is pretty outrageous. It undermines all the effort that we have just undergone in doing this efficiency study, and to even make that statement just made me want to jump out of my skin. It undermines the utility of this report and the utility of transportation all across this country. All of these proposed changes will be painful for someone, life-changing for many, destabilizing. The one story that sticks out in my mind from the South Kingstown Town Hall was a young man who was going to have to lose out on a scholarship to a community college because he cannot afford a car He cannot afford to pay for his own university studies, and that scholarship was his ticket to a better life and to the middle class. These proposed cuts are going to cut those life-enhancing social ties that come through the freedom to move around your community at your own will and to be a participant in it. There was talk today about expanding partnerships like the ones we have with CCRI to Rick and URI. I've been working with the CEO in order to make those happen. I've been trying to engage the university. We will make that happen. These are things that we can do to grow our system, diversify our ridership, create stronger bonds in the next generation as they come up to be users in this transit system, because they don't want to own a car. They're not like us. They don't want the fees, the repairs, the insurance. They don't want all those costs. They are burdened enough with the costs of college and life in general. So we're ignoring the future. If you want to build something strong, start by growing it. This is a public transit system, and the primary responsibility is on the state to provide the services. Looking for partnerships are secondary and tertiary, okay? They're necessary, but the end, it comes to our state to provide this public transit service. Not a single one of those places that were reviewed or compared as peer agencies are free from state funding. And we have fallen short on that, and I'd like that question addressed when you guys have your next iteration of a discussion with the people who made the study. And I also want to know if there's going to be a public discussion, because I think it's incredibly important. We just invested so much time and money in that study. I want it to be a public discussion, so I do hope that that is going to be a public discussion. And right sizing, a word that we've heard an awful lot, means destroying. Okay? We worked so hard. You, the General Assembly, people in the state are putting the bill for this. We worked so hard that those employees to drive our buses, if we're gonna right size and destroy that workforce by 20%, we've wasted time, we've wasted money, and it is absolute foolhardiness to do that. What other public serving agency would ever consider right sizing? At our next hearing for DCYF, are we gonna say, oh, perhaps we need to right size this agency? Are we gonna look at how efficiently, DOT is at serving the public here? Is that road too small? Only 12 people use it each day? So let's just stop repairing it. Let's just, that bridge over there, isn't that important to, 30% of our users? So why do we continue to do that? We need to right size a lot of things in state government. RIPTA is not one, and this efficiency study, which we did not need, proves that time and again.
Thank you. I think we've given you more than a minute beyond the time that everyone else.
Is that what that noise was? I'm sorry, I paused because I thought it was someone's cell phone ringing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Walter Melillo and John Flaherty on deck.
Say good afternoon or good late morning. Chairman, board members, my name is Walter Melillo, I'm the president business agent of Local 618, 618A. All the hard members here at RIPTA work so hard to get people where they need to go. This hits home, right? Service cuts, service reductions, layoffs, possible layoffs. These are men and women that I've worked alongside of. I've seen them come through the door, new hirees with hope, great job, and now they're at the point where we might lose them. And like I said, that hits home. I always advocate for my members, and I'm very concerned, obviously, for them and their families. Also going to the public, going back to, look at the top, 44% of the service. No reductions, service cut. Now, if you look at the riding public, what this means to them, everyday essentials. We know where they go, we know what they do. But this is a lifeline, like so many others said, and this is critical moment in Victor. Because if we lose this kind of service, you don't know if we're gonna get it back. And we understand that we need adjustment and, need efficiency. But right now, going by this letter, what the governor says, okay, we can have another study, we can look at the efficiency of RIPTA and what runs the clock, but we need a quick fix, right? We need the service, some of the service needs to be put back into Kentucky. When you're taking away 44% of the routes, there is no choice, there is no option. So one of the things in my past years here that we have done at RIPTA is alternate buses. Don't take away the whole service. Alternate a bus to 76 and 80. So you're going up one way, you're coming back another way, and vice versa. So instead of having 4 buses out there, we'll reduce it to 2 buses. So there's a lot of ideas, and the union and the company, the authority, Chris, and so many others work together. We work hard to get where we need to be. But this is about the public also, and it's critical that we get the funds we need. We have to work together, state, local, RIPTA, and myself, the union. And we got great leaders in the union, not only myself, but my board and the members. And I just want to let you know that it's a great state. We need a great transit agency. It's part of economic growth. It brings so much to other communities. It brings so much to the communities, not only financially, but the social events and so many other things. So we need to fund RIPTA, we need to advocate, and we can't leave people behind, people around. So,
Thank you.
John Flaherty and then Alan and Ray.
Good afternoon. Actually, I wish it was, or good morning.
Yeah.
I wish it was a good morning. So I attended several of the service company hearings around the state. I saw a lot of anger, I saw a lot of frustration, I saw a lot of desperation. I'm sure many of you have as well. The thing is, there's really not much new about the situation, except maybe the magnitude. What we're experiencing right now has been forecasted for a very long time. RIPTA's fiscal sustainability was called out back in 2002, 23 years ago, by the fiscal watchdog group RIPTA, acknowledging that RIPTA will experience annual service reductions unless a fiscal get well plan is adopted and implemented. Here we are. In terms of RIPTA's efficiency, this is also something that we've known for many years. We didn't need this latest efficiency study, which I consider to be a downsizing study, not so much an efficiency study. We've known that. So what we have in this state with our transit agency is one that most states or metro regions would love to have, that operates as RIPTA does. It's one of the strong things about our state. Even though there's been a perception that it's been mismanaged, it hasn't been. We've known that. So this crisis was avoidable. We have in this state an economic development strategy. We have a state housing strategy to deal with our crisis. We have a climate action plan, as well as a law to back that up with mandates. Doing anything other than growing our transit system will be bringing us in the exact opposite direction that we should be going in. RIPTA is a public good. It's not a transaction. And RIPTA is a public utility. I want to leave you with one constructive suggestion for going forward, and that is that as soon as this immediate crisis is behind us, is to commit to developing a truly long-term and sustainable mechanism for funding transit. analysis on this, again, has been done over and over again since maybe the 2008 Blue Ribbon Commission that Governor Pacheco put forward. So there's ideas there, and, but this has to come from the board, from the board's recommendation to state legislators and to the governor, for how we're gonna actually fund this, because there's so much riding on it. And I just wanna leave you with one final point here, which is to point out what we are not doing in the state. This is according to the Federal Transit Administration's National Transit Database, per capita funding of transit, state to state. Rhode Island's $19 per person. Other similar states, Connecticut, $68. Delaware, $101. Pennsylvania, $120. New Jersey, $143. Maryland, $199. I could go on. We're at 19. We have not made a commitment in the state to properly fund transit. And that should be priority one, once we've gotten past this crisis. I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Alan Lemay, and then Brian Weiss.
Good morning, my name is Alan May, I live in Providence. I'd like to thank you for delaying the vote today, but I also beg you to oppose any cuts to busing or reduction of frequency. These are essential to many people in Rhode Island. The way to get to work for people, this is a vital part of people's lives. And cutting busing, or as the governor wants, increasing funding will only cutting prices will only price people out of public transit. It's invaluable thing. I have an option to drive if I want to. Other people don't. I see every day that people, this is the way that they get to and from work, get to and from doctor's appointments, get to and from family. And I think cutting these things for people will only hurt people. This is a state that has an issue with congestion, with homelessness increasing, with cost of living increasing, and we're taking a public good, a public thing meant for the public, and we're taking it away from people and making life harder. I think in the end, it's only gonna reduce people's ridership, and it's only gonna create even more of a budget shortfall for you in the future. I think the only way forward is for you to invest in more busing, invest in keeping Providence and the greater Rhode Island area able to get around. Providence is a great place to get around in busing. It's tough when you're going out of the state. You have to plan an hour, 2 hours ahead, and then around the state. That's tough. I have friends who go to URI, and if they want to come to Providence, they can be up and they go be ready for an hour and a half ride. It's tough for people. Thank you. Once again, I just hope that you please oppose any kind of cutting busing, any kind of cutting in frequency. People rely on this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brian Weiss, I think maybe Brian had to leave. So I move to Ben Pham. And then next will be Jason Victoria O'Connell.
My name is Ian Pham, and I'm a college student in Canada. As a young adult, public transportation helps us explore and appreciate our state, such as gaining an education, going to school on time, learning beyond the classroom through work and extracurriculars, and learning to socialize by spending time with my friends. The adult figures in my life, and probably in this boardroom as well, always wonder why kids these days are so attached to their phones and want to stay home. And my answer to that is because the built environment only supports driving, and many of us do not have the means or can afford to do so. RIPTA offers a window for us to get around the entire state and not just Providence. It helps us appreciate our surroundings like our libraries, our malls, and most importantly, our beaches. And by cutting service, for example, nearly every route to the beach, you are limiting our abilities to appreciate what our state has to offer. The skills we learn riding the bus and the places we go are important for us because we learn how to manage our schedules and when to get off the bus. And these are important for us to become well-engaged and responsible adults, and most importantly, constituents that vote accordingly. I'm asking the board to please reconsider cuts. The last service hearings just happened yesterday, and we need more time to young adults of this state. Because without adequate public transportation, why would any young adult, like myself, want to live and love Rhode Island? We aren't Cape Cod. Rhode Island deserves to be an emerging state, and RIPTA is the way to go to do so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Jason. And next is, after that is Liza Barkin.
My name is Jason Victoria O'Connell, and I live in Providence, and I want to tell you why we cannot afford to make cuts to RIPTA. While empathy is the reason I'm here today, I'm skeptical about the empathy of people who make decisions that won't immediately affect them, so I'm going to frame most of this as a sales pitch. Cuts to public transit will lead to reduced access to employment opportunities, including less jobs within RIPTA. In addition, businesses will struggle to retain workers who depend on public transit, and there will be decreased productivity due to longer commutes. All of this will negatively impact the local economy. Long term, it'll damage the housing market as well, because those who can afford it will simply leave as their local economy goes downhill. Public transit cuts will increase car dependency, leading to more traffic congestion, and that's what will cause the aforementioned longer commutes and environmental consequences like more pollution, carbon emissions, and oil consumption. Cuts to public transportation cause a spiral where reduced service leads to decreased ridership, further revenue losses, and then even more cuts, and the cycle starts again, causing suffering and tanking the economy at every step. One appeal to empathy that I must make: reduced access to transportation leads to social isolation and mental health issues, particularly for vulnerable groups like the elderly, people with disabilities, those on low or fixed incomes, and people without access to personal vehicles. It will also limit access to healthcare, education, and essential services. And for the sake of the sales pitch, if those services are used less, they will make less revenue, and that will affect the local economy as well. I know that this board doesn't have the final say in how much funding RIPTA gets, but I think that we should refuse to propose a single cut to service. And if Governor McKee or any other decision maker says that there's no money for it, since money can move around, I urge you to tell them to look no further than the budgets for the police across the state, because different websites say different things, but it's millions upon millions of dollars for the state and local police budgets. And those police not only clear out homeless encampments, but they've been helping ICE to tear families apart and terrorize our communities. In Governor McKee's letter, he says that he has, quote, a duty to every taxpayer put in the bill, unquote. Taxpayers put the majority of the bill for the police too. As a taxpayer who uses RIPTA literally 1 day per calendar month, if that, I am happy to have my tax dollars go to RIPTA, a service that helps my community, helps my fellow Rhode Islanders, rather than to overfunded police. My final thought is this: when you make it too expensive for people to live, you condemn those people to death. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
This is Liza Barkin and Elizabeth Hubbard on deck.
Hello everyone, Liza Barkin, the Providence Streets Coalition for the campaign. I want to thank you for delaying the vote and implore you to continue working for a solution. What if we buy ourselves 1 or 2 weeks? Guess what? It is all of your jobs to change the governor's mind. Director Albi, I appreciate your optimism. I was listening to you on the radio this morning. I appreciate your optimism, but this is not a new beginning for RIPTA. I don't want to hear the word right size out of anybody's mouth in this room. Call it what it is. Right size, that is a slimy PR euphemism for cuts that are going to devastate tens of thousands of Rhode Islanders. Let's strike that word from the record. No more of this right sizing talk. Just call it what it is, cuts. And we all in this room have a responsibility to avert these cuts, to do whatever, to spend every last crumb of political capital to save the lives of the Rhode Islanders who depend on this service. We're going to be trapped in their homes, stranded by the state of Rhode Island, in Kennedy Plaza, in their homes, literally by the side of the road, when the bus does not come. I wanna correct something else that was said on the radio this morning, and also implore you not to let a right-wing radio show host dictate transit policy in the state. The number of riders participating in the fare-free program is 24%, and it's a state requirement from the budget in 2017. We have a responsibility, a legal obligation to continue providing that program for those who need it. But most importantly, kind of reiterating what Mr. Flaherty was saying, we have to change their minds. You're saying state leaders want these cuts. Can you please remind them about the Act on Climate, about the state housing plan, which is citing affordable housing on high-frequency transit lines, about the Olmstead plan, which is about reintegrating folks with disabilities into their communities, which depends on public transit, about the governor's school attendance shtick that is dependent on transit. All of these plans require expanding RIPTA and not cutting, certainly not right size. He wants to cut all the rural routes now and jack up the fare. How is that helpful to the broader goals of his administration? That is the argument that we need to be working on. We as activists, I think we bought some time. So please spend the next 1 or 2 weeks expending your political capital. And yes, the efficiency studies, everything, we know that transit across the country is struggling. But guess what? There are many localities and states that are not struggling, that have found their way through this moment of pain and inflation. In New York, they enacted congestion pricing. In Massachusetts, they passed the millionaire's tax. In Minnesota, they passed a metro sales tax that is supporting public transit to higher levels than ever before. Last year, in the across the country localities, there were 18 ballot measures in localities across the country enacting greater taxes, and voters voted yes on 16 of those 18. The city of Nashville. Public transit is popular, and it is, again, we need to change the narrative. And you all were appointed by the governor, so please do your job. We've bought you some time. Let's work towards a solution that does not involve cuts.
Thank you.
Elizabeth Hubbard, and then John Welch.
So, I'm Elizabeth Hubbard, and I'm the executive secretary, which is agency head over at the Governor's Commission on Disabilities. And I'm just surprised that I'm the only agency head who has been consistently trying to call for RIPTA actively funded. Because this affects every aspect of state services in the state economy. I thank you for your decision today to forestall the cuts. I've heard some other proposals that I don't agree with. I really don't think that asking private industry to give inputs to RIPTA is going to be the solution. There's no incentive from them to offer anything to the public. On the other hand, if we were to reduce the routes and reduce their access to employees who use public transit, because they're gonna have fewer employees that actually can come to the job. For example, we're cutting into several of the routes that goes to Bally's. Bally's just got approval to set up casinos in New York. What do you think's gonna happen if Bally's all of a sudden can't fully staff? They're just gonna close the casino in Rhode Island and throw down money in New York. Why not? We also need to consider the impact on social services as well as the education and other systems that we've already invested so much in. For example, Rhode Island Department of Education, they should be here supporting this because students can use RIPTA, and the governor has been very invested in school attendance, and having an adequate transportation system helps with attendance. Because transportation is a barrier for students. We learned that from looking at studies about why we had issues with absenteeism. Also, in the post-secondary education department, they should be here. Look to them for support. Ask them to provide your support because we have spent so much, money on already. RIPTA has already invested in creating the transit hub to cease right Aurora. to suddenly cut those routes and reduce the service is ridiculous. You've already made that investment, so why are you gonna pull back and then not see the return on your investment? Other state agencies that should be involved, Department of Labor and Training, they should be concerned, they should be supporting you because RIPTA enables people to get to their jobs. And then also, if somebody is transitioning from being off benefits to going to work, they aren't gonna have the capital, the savings to really buy a car, they're gonna probably have to rely on public transit to get to that job. Not to mention the people with disabilities who don't qualify for paratransit, but do rely on the bus to get to their jobs. Department of Health, they should be concerned because RIPTA enables people to get to treatment and healthcare. UHHS, the Olmsted plan was mentioned, and in the Olmsted, UHHS, those who are planning Olmsted and trying to write a plan, in the, small amount of public input that they've gotten, transportation has been one of the biggest concerns raised by people with disabilities, and asking about what does the state do to help people with disabilities live in the community and access the community. And also, the Department of Transportation should be pushing support RIPTA because it is going to reduce wear and tear on the streets, traffic, and reduce wear and tear on bridges. So all the state agencies should be asking them to support RIPTA and support funding for RIPTA. When it comes to the efficiency study, I understand, yes, we don't know, about the other states, but that's all we have to compare to. All we have to compare is other localities that are similar size, and those are carefully selected. And we aren't looking at, other state agencies. No other state agency has undergone the rigorous analysis that was with this efficiency study. And if you look at the amount that is spent on administration versus on actual direct services, I can guarantee it's probably a lot lower than one of these other state agencies. So please support RIPTA and ask the rest of the state to join with you and fight to try to maintain these services, because a reduction in these services means a reduction in access to other services and a reduction in time.
Thank you.
John Welch and Cedric Yee.
John Welch, been a resident of Rhode Island 17 years. 15 years I have owned an auto, and RIPTA has been my primary transportation. My crusade is to extend the R line through Central Falls with 22,000 residents to stop and shop at Cumberland Mall. It's on the 20-year RIPTA plan. The only RIPTA bus service in that most dense city of Rhode Island ends at 6 p.m. The games at Centreville Bank Stadium for Rhode Island Football Club starts at 7. If they became the Eastern champions like last year, the game would probably be at 8 o'clock for the Californians at 5. The partner that's ideal for that extension of the R line to support this is the Rhode Island Football Club president, because their average attendance is now 2,500 less than the sellout. Getting 10% of 22,000 would allow them to sell out the remainder of the home games, so they're a natural partner. I have copies of my July 27th letter for each of you to be distributed today, hopefully, so you can see what my thoughts are supporting this extension of the R line. I'm trying to get a meeting with David Cicilline. We were members of Gold's Gym together, because I lived in the apartment of the parking lot adjacent to that old Coastland that now is a dealership. LA Fitness has taken over, so I'm only 3 blocks, and I try to be an athlete at 77 years old and maintain respect as martial arts. If one lives and works along the R line, you don't need a car. I want it to be a living example of what I believe. I was earning $50,000 to $70,000 per year as an RN and I wasn't owning a car. I was experiencing the RN all routes, so I know what I'm talking about when I make some suggestions. I've appreciated the time and attention of CEO here and his predecessor whom I knew. This is on the 20-year plan. It's a natural partnership with RIPTA. A high performance is 25% of the R-Line statewide ridership is on the R-Line. I'm projecting that if you extend the R-Line through Central Falls, it'll be 40%. If anybody has had their transportation cut off, they should follow the advice of the extended R-Line and live and work along the R-Line, because that's their solution to it. It's gonna be much cheaper than those more expensive states in the South. Thanks for your time and attention. I've been impressed with everybody I've been exposed to, and I'm glad you had the opportunity, so I know who you are. I hope you pick up my letter there, and take care.
Thank you. Thank you.
Cedric, and then Ray Gaggy.
Hi, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. I'm Cedric, I'm a high school student from Eastern Providence. I use RIPTA to go to school after internship, to do civic engagement. My original comments were going to be the plea that you will make the civic code. I thank you for doing that. So there was some other things that came up during the meeting that I wanted to address. Director, you asked if cost per hour and other efficiency metrics get better or worse as a result of service cuts. I think so much worse. According to a data analysis by MassDOT analyst Ethan McIntosh, in 2022, when we made cuts because of the driver shortage, our cost per hour went from like 130-ish to $208 an hour. These cuts are going to be twice as much as that one. You also said that RIPTA being in line with peers wasn't a good comparison because I guess because the peers might also be inefficient. And I did want to bring up that according to the American Bus Benchmarking Group, RIPTA used to be one of the single most efficient mid-sized transit agencies in the country. We were leading all of our peers. And I guess right now we're only in line with our peers. I think it's because of the service cuts that we made in 2022 that we're doubling down on. You also said that the RIPTA's existing downward spiral necessitates sacrifices. RIPTA's funding model is literally just not indexed to inflation. And a lot of that is because the gas tax, all of the inflation adjustments of the gas tax are given to write-off. So RIPTA's budget has decreased 9% in the last decade. Then you also called service cuts as an opportunity to attract funding from the General Assembly and the federal government. I cannot think of a single service cut in memory that got reversed, like the temporary ones in 2002. I think there were ones somewhere in the 2010s, there were ones in the 2000s, especially because, and this brings me into the discussion about right sizing. Sorry, Liza. You mentioned of right sizing seem to reference the governor saying that ridership has declined despite no change in service. I mean, we've lost the online free fare pilot and the Central Falls free fare pilot, and we had the cuts in fall 2022, and we also had the driver shortage that wrecked reliability. In contrast, the 72 and 14 were some of the only routes that have seen improved frequencies, and they have higher ridership than pre-COVID. So what is the right size if ridership is directly proportional to the quality of service? Because if we listen to Hasbro, if we listen to small businesses, oh, am I already 3? I'm sorry. But then the right size is bigger. Okay, I'll stop. Thank you so much I implore you to please be doing everything you can to stop these cuts, because the mandate I was given was to finish the efficiency study and to negotiate how much additional money was needed. Thank you.
Woo! Ray Gaggy, next is Grant O'Gary.
Hello, I am Ray Gagney from the Rhode Island Organizing Project. I want to thank the board for postponing the vote. My view is we should have no cuts. My organization works primarily with low-income elderly. Most of them earn well under the $1,300 poverty threshold. I have one woman that I work with, her name's Barbara. She says RIPTA is the people's car, because they rely on RIPTA for everything. The things that are obvious, going to the doctors, going food shopping, but they also use it to get to religious services. Many of them volunteer, so cuts to that population would be devastating. The last 2 weeks, I went to Kennedy Plaza 8 times. I probably spent, some days I went for half an hour, some days I went for an hour and a half, and I heard many of the stories that you've heard at the hearings, many of the stories that you heard here. I was most struck by the workers. I had one woman who uses the 14 to get to work. She was incredulous that it wasn't going to be there on the weekend, so I won't be able to get to work. I had workers who were telling me, well, if they change the schedule, my commute's just going to get longer. So RIPTA is an economic development strategy. And I'm old enough to remember when the buses were owned by private industry. I used to take the bus with my mother in Central Falls to get to City Hall or the library. On Saturdays, I would go with my grandmother to go shopping in Pawtucket. Private industry abandoned transportation. The state decided that it was a public good. RIPTA is a public good, so it's my hope that the governor will find the money to support the public good. Also, in terms of underperforming routes, I took the 20 bus here today. Came in 20 minutes, I was able to get here in 15. If all of our routes were 20 minutes or less, our ridership would increase. So thank you for your time, and thank you for your service, because I know you have to put a lot of time into this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Grant Delgarian, and followed by Paul Levon.
I'm gonna let others go ahead.
So Paul Levon will be followed by Crystal Vargas.
Before you start the clock, just a personal note. This is my stroke alert dog, Aggie. We've been riding RIPTA for a year since my doctor said I couldn't drive anymore. And back in June, y'all had an all-points bulletin to all the drivers. Be on the lookout for Matthew McCarthy, a guy with a white fluffy dog. If he tries to get on your bus, call the police. We took more abuse. I had one driver down in Whitford actually had the state police. I had to show my ID, so y'all know what I get, but an apology.
Okay.
As a former consultant public speaker, but I'm gonna read my comments. Okay, I recently published a book called Hopeless Rhode Island Ocean State Underwater. And contrary to Governor McKee's comment that it's just a bunch of bitching, no, it's a lot of ideas, creative ideas to solve Rhode Island's challenges. I have a chapter on RIPTA. As a marketing consultant, I spent years helping Fortune 500 companies and state and local government agencies discover revenue opportunities. The first thing I always told a government agency was, those people out there aren't taxpayers, residents, occupants, whatever, they're customers. Treat them like that, treat them like customers, okay? You aren't riders or passengers, they're your customers. I have experienced startup and transit systems in Nashville, New Hampshire, Cal County, Georgia, and Denton County, Texas. Here are my suggestions from my book for RIPTA. Number one, close to 100 buses a day serve Bally's Casino in Lincoln. Taxpayers shouldn't be subsidizing a $4 billion company, okay? I loathe Donald Trump, but if I can borrow one of his expressions, Bally's is ripping off the taxpayers of the state of Rhode Island. I say you should assess a $50 charge for every bus that delivers gamblers to Bally's, and if they refuse, then tell them, you know what, pull out, hire your own buses, okay? Let them take care of themselves. And I know the governor and the speaker get lots of money in campaign contributions, but you all have to stand up and be the advocates. In corporate America, when one division is losing money, they shift money around. So RIDOT has a huge parking garage at the Whitford train station. I call it the Taj Mahal Garage. It's beautiful. Just a handful of people who use MBTA rail or RIPTA buses park there. Today, the place is virtually empty, but starting next month, it's going to be jam-packed for the next 10 months. You know with who? With college students from Pennsylvania, Ohio, all the other states who go to URI. And guess what? They park their BMWs, their Audis, their high-priced cars, and covered parking with a 24-hour day service. Why not start charging them? Charge a monthly rate. You can get $2 million a year from that. Okay. I ride the 66 bus, and it kills me when I see kids from Providence who can't afford a car. When we get to the Wickford train station, these rich kids are dropping off their high-priced cars and catching the 66 to get back to the campus. And that's a shame. Okay. Rhode also provides free parking at the productive Central Falls train station to hundreds of commuters who travel to high-paying jobs in Boston. Every station from Attleboro to Boston charges for for parking. Rhode should charge and shift that money to RIPTA. Our beaches in this state don't open until 9 o'clock in the morning, okay? Beachgoers can sit in the hot sun all day. The Wickford Garage can be open for people to park their cars on the cover for free and provide express bus services directly to Scarborough, Roger Wheeler, etc. You want an idea on how to cut expenses? Your flex rides. They take people from 5-10 minute rides on their errands or whatever. You don't do away with that. Get into a partnership with Lyft and Uber and have vouchers for people for the short-term rides. With all due respect to Mr. Duran, he's a finance guy. In corporate America, I found that finance guys kill the corporations. Frank Lorenzo destroyed Eastern and Continental Airlines. I've always encouraged my clients to look for ways to grow their business, grow their revenue. It was mentioned earlier, when I started my career, corporations had layoffs and job cuts. Well, then they came up with downsizing and right-sizing. I told them, you know what, you need to improve your value proposition.
We're giving you more time to allow everyone else, so if you could wrap it up.
Okay. One personal point. I graduated from Woonsocket High School at 16 years old. I couldn't join my brothers going to General Motors in Framingham, so I went to Rhode Island Junior College. Thank God I had RIPTA to take me from Woonsocket to Providence to Warwick. I retired as a $1,500 a day consultant. I would not have had that career were it not for RIPTA. I'd have been building cars with my brothers and eventually been laid off. So, consider RIPTA to be not just a lifeline, but an economic engine that can help people create better lives for themselves. Thank you.
Thank you.
Crystal Vargas and then Lorraine Martinez.
Hi, Crystal Vargas. I moved to Providence in 2021 from Los Angeles. Not the best transportation, but shout out to Metro, y'all are great. I moved here to pursue my degree in biotechnology from Brown University, with barely enough to live for a month with my fiance. And I remember us having our backpacks and walking from Fox Point to the East Side Marketplace when it was still open, and we filled up our backpacks with groceries. And we had to walk back, not realizing that RIPTA is something we can rely on. So we ended up buying a janky car, and it would break down a lot. So my fiance would have to take the RIPTA bus from Providence to Lincoln, Rhode Island, and we thank RIPTA for that. A couple of years ago, I was laid off from my job, and I did everything I could except go to church. I ended up taking the bus to a Catholic church and praying for a job, and I ended up getting one. So I thank RIPTA for these opportunities for us young people to get to a financial state that we need to be in. So I really need to see that everyone cares and will care about young people, care about elderly, care about veterans, people with disabilities, care about people of color, okay? And care about the working class. I yield my time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Lorraine Martinez, followed by Yoga Almeida.
Hi, my name is Lauren Martinez. I had something prepared, but reading this, it made me mad. So I'm a mobile notary. I'm also a CCRI student and an administrative professional. I don't have a car. So this is very important to me. ridership decline. How much of that is due to the past service cuts and changes? And how much is that going to fall after the proposed cuts? The part about having responsibility to riders, but also having to pay to every taxpayer. Riders and taxpayers are one and the same. It's not that hard. Sorry, this is a little more emotional than I thought it would be. Just allow me to be theatrical for just a second and just, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alright, I'm gonna be nice first, you know, got all upset going on. I'm an immigrant, but I consider myself American because I've been here since '96. RIPTA ushered me through childhood, through UCAT, to different schools. I graduated with a C from high school barely. C Sarah, I barely 1.5, whatever, because I come from a single family home. We're looking for a greater future. We are the innovators. What you're doing are cutters at the knees. We are a military complex as a nation. We are a caste system. We are the workers who keep you the job. So listen, we're gonna turn the pyramid ahead. I'm gonna be a Republican and a good one. Because this state, the Democrats did me right. They had welfare, but my mom never took it. She worked 80 hours with 2 children, so I was a mother. My brother's a doctor. I made sure he was first. Because as a black man, they're picking him up every week. We are living a civil war as black people and people of color. I only became black in America, I became black in Africa. I'm whatever I say I am because I'm multiracial. So I've seen the game from all the schematics. And then in September, I'm gonna be at MIT creating an AI to take your jobs. And guess what? I'm gonna be at home taking your jobs because this isn't a casino. Y'all are bringing your rich friends to party. Can we party too? Can we not be the slaves? Y'all have the land by the water, and then you have the impoverished by the water working for you. Why can't we party too? Yeah, I want to party. I want my kids to live like I did. The bus drivers when my son went to school, he's in 8th grade. This is so-and-so. Respect him. If you don't got the money, he'll let you on. And when I see him, I will pay. These bus drivers are rude, especially these white males. They're ignorant. I don't have my thing because I have autism. I lose everything. Oh, you can't get on. Listen, I give you the job because you put me in position to give you a better job. How about we make downtown just a hub for buses, have the flexes, nobody can use them because they're $4, I'm not $2. Have them spaceship out, have the big buses for outer reaches, and get the little girl who's dreaming in Barrington and Burville, because that's where your DCRF lives, get them to a better position, and we can grow this nation together. I want it to be cohesive. If it's not, I'm gonna be the best Republican strategist there is, and I'm gonna take all your jobs. I'm gonna be the governor, and I ain't playing no games. I'm gonna make sure your children don't work good. I'm gonna make sure they're gonna leave the state. If I go to New York, if I go to Boston, and I have to leave Rhode Island, because I like the system, I am gonna terrorize you from Washington. I tell you, California's doing, I'm a California Republican. They're doing it. We are a microcosm of the nation. We are the 13 colonies. We should be embarrassed of a stolen land, and we can't do right by its people. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, better.
Samantha Coogan. And then followed by Carol Mack.
I'm Samantha. I had different statements to say, but I am happy that the cuts were delayed, but I don't think the way to do it is to discuss cutting, like raising fares or continuing to cut service. Especially when RIPTA serves 60,000 people, Rhode Islanders a day, and we have single bridge projects or road projects that get funded to the tune of $250 million, but for like the Washington Bridge, before the closure, they had about 100,000 people cross the bridge a day, and we're spending hundreds of millions of dollars to fix that one bridge, but the whole system of RIPTA moves 60,000 people a day, could move more, and we're quibbling about a few million to shore up the budget. I think it's more about the political will to find the money than about the actual cost of the money. Taxpayers benefit from people like me who can't drive because of my disabilities, being able to go to my part-time job in Cranston, and I probably won't be able to do my job, to get to my job as easily on the weekends because of the bus cuts. Especially like a route as frequently used as the 21, getting cut on the weekends or at all is going to negatively impact the people who shop at those businesses in Cranston Garden City area, people who work there. A lot of the people who work in that plaza, I see them all the time on the same buses that I take to go to my job. And one of the things that would make ridership increase is obviously having more seats at bus stops, improving the way to ride and use RIPTA, making it more convenient by adding service, by adding accommodations, will increase ridership. Cutting service will just reduce ridership further. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sharon Mack, and then Pat Ford.
Hello, I was first introduced to RIPTA as an undergrad using the free program at Brown University, and that's where I first got to see RIPTA as a public good. And as I continue to think about what is the use of RIPTA as more and more constituents who decide to be carless, all of my elderly constituents, the rise of my constituents who are also experiencing homelessness. As a state senator, some of the stories that are here are heartbreaking. And I think about how we fund public schools, not to then charge families tuition in order to go to those public schools, because it's a public good. I think about how we also fund our libraries and have a robust public library system all across our communities, not because we want those libraries to become bookstores and then sell books to those very people, but because libraries and the resources are a public good. And then I think about RIPTA and how for a lot of my adulthood, whether it's an undergrad, having free bus transit, or a few years ago when we had the free R-Line pilot, where there was an increase in ridership, there were new people who were accessing it because it was now a free public good. And yes, we were able to do that because of COVID funding, but it is it's a testament to when there are resources allocated to a system and when there is public funding for these resources, more people use it, and it then becomes the public good that it's meant to be. During that pilot program, I had more and more constituents who decided that they didn't need their cars anymore. I had more and more constituents who said, I had no idea RIPTA could take me from Providence to Newport. I was just at the Newport Jazz Festival, one of our crown jewel weekends, in addition to Folk Fest. I hopped on the RIPTA line at the end of the concert, and literally from Newport to Providence, there was standing room only on a bus to get from Newport to Providence. The entire route, standing room only. A testament to when we increase access to these buses, more people use them, and it takes people from our state and visitors to our state to really great places and really great locations. It also stimulates the economy. I also think about when I was at the Rhode Island football game last night. There was a big banner across the sign, from beaches to the stadium, use RIPTA. And then we hear about the devastating cuts. On my street alone, I've lived there for about 15 years on the east side. There's been so many cuts to services. Now as an able-bodied young person, I can walk down a hill to get the R line, or I can walk up a hill to get to the number one, but many of my constituents can't make that same decision. Many constituents can't make the decision to use our RIPTA services. More and more people are unable to get to grocery shops. More people are unable to get to our robust downtown or commercial centers to populate and to buy goods from local businesses because we have divested from our system. And it's a policy choice. For years, we've known that RIPTA has had a funding shortfall, and we've chosen not to invest in RIPTA because we haven't seen the outcry of support. We haven't listened to the people who say that if I have access to RIPTA, whether it's through a free program or through increased ridership or frequent lines, that we're not gonna be able to use it. As more and more people are also conscious about the climate transition, how we're gonna meet our climate goals, going carless is an option, but it's increasingly hard here in the rigor. But I hope that my constituents who are represented downtown where there's the most ridership and people from all across the state can see that there's a commitment both in our budget and years to come that we have allocated the resource to continue to see RIPTA just as we see our schools and our libraries as a public good that everyone should have access to, and that should be fully publicly funded so that no one has to worry about not having access to all of the great resources across our state. Thank you all for your time.
Pat Ford, followed by Alex Taylor.
Good morning, my name is Pat Ford. I'm with the Coalition Radio Network, a local media organization. I typically defer to, activists and riders to go first before I speak. Of course, I'm here to discuss the route that shall not speak its name, R1636. From the RIPTA website, RIPTA is free to go all around home games and select special events in the stadium. Route R1636 will loop continuously between key bus stops in the stadium every 8 to 10 minutes per game on game day. R1636 is the only RIPTA bus that will provide direct service to the stadium, dropping passengers off at nearby Evan Airport. The free game day starts just a 3-1 will begin operating 3 hours before kickoff and continually until 1 hour after all the post game. I was here at the last meeting. I asked that. I spoke to Mr. Ali. I'll direct my questions to the chair, who was mentioned to the record that he was not aware of that. We'll talk about that in a second. Wait. Before that meeting, I issued an ARPA requesting a contract and a variety of communications that led up to the creation of that contract. I was denied 148 items. I was sent a copy of the contract. It turns out that RIPTA is getting compensated in the form of advertising. At a recent Woonsocket public hearing, when I was finally able to, hate to use confront, but pretty much confront, because they'd ignored all other forms of communication, the CEO of RIPTA explained to me that the purpose of this was to get advertising to generate new ridership. So, in perhaps one of the most ludicrous moments in my career covering Rhode Island government, I realized that we are cutting service to people because of the lack of funds, yet we are working for free for a private entertainment company, because that's what a soccer team is. It's a private entertainment company. In order to get new riders, what? Replace the riders from the suburbs or all the folks here? I'm not supposed to editorialize, but that's idiotic. So, flash forward, I have done an APRA request for the year-to-date operating costs of said line. Now again, 4 buses at least, 4 drivers, supervisory personnel, fixed costs, 4 hours a day, game days, as well as other events. That's gonna start to add up. And that money, in addition to the $10 million of APRA funds that the city of Kentucky gave to build the stadium, which could have been used for, I don't know, $10 million sounds familiar to me, but that seems to be a recurring number here for now. I requested the operating cost. Well, the time is coming on. I haven't received a single communication. And for the record, I filed yesterday a formal complaint with the Attorney General over the failure of RIPTA to communicate properly. I don't know if this is a new game plan. I don't know if this is a result of your assumption of senior leadership here, but the lack of transparency on some pretty fundamental issues. I'm assuming that RIPTA is using a job costing software. So it's fair to say that this should be accessible with computer report, yet weeks have gone by and I've heard nothing. So, Mr. Albini, under Rhode Island general laws, in a public comment, I am allowed to ask you questions that may or may not be on the agenda. So, Mr. Albini, number one, are you familiar with this now? Number two, do you have any assumption of cost? I hope I'm not interrupting your phone call here. Do you have any?
Well, you're not interrupting anything but all the other speakers. Your time is up. So if you could put your questions in written form and
I
send
did, and you haven't referred to the APRA that I just sent, so you're not even listening. I just told you I sent an APRA requesting that information, and you ignored it, and you'll get the letter from the Attorney General, which you'll probably ignore. So, pay attention.
Thank you.
And by the way, final question, could we see the efficiency studies that have been done for RIDA? Are any of them available publicly?
You could put your questions in.
Right, which you'll ignore. Should I just set up a standard fill in the blanks
template for complaints to the Attorney General.
Thank you.
Bueller? Bueller? Sleep type around.
Thank you.
Alex Taylor and then Samantha Mock.
Hi, my name is Alex Taylor, out of Providence. Thank you for taking the time to delay the vote and more fully consider the feedback we got from our sources and what you're here today. I think that is, thank you for doing your duty in that way. The case for RIPTA as a public good has been made well, better than I could by other people. But I did want to sort of ground it in a little bit of specifics. I think that it appears from the outside that state leadership, DOT leadership, use RIPTA as a thing for other people. Some people need this. Those people need this. And I think that it is unappreciated how the network effect, like how much effect this has on the whole state. At the end of his life, I had to have a lot of conversations with my dad about when it was time to give up his keys. He should not have been driving as long as he did. He lived in rural Colorado, and a big part of his argument was, it will cut me off from my community. It's isolated, there isn't a meaningful public transit option there. If I don't have my car, I can't see my friends, I can't go to the places that are important to me. And that was a really hard argument to get over. And these cuts are turning Rhode Island into that, you're imposing that situation on Rhode Islanders. This is an impact to that one person, but there's a network effect. People that choose to drive longer than they should are danger to themselves, they're danger to other people. And it's not a thing that you can sort of isolate and say, oh, well, these cuts will just impact those people. Those cuts have a ripple effect out into the rest of the community. I'm currently trying to convince my mother to move out here, to move out of a less isolated environment into a place with a better support network. It'd be easier for me to support her, it'd be easier for her to get around and interact with a new community. These cuts will make that impossible. That argument will not be, I can't make it credible, with these cuts being considered. So, as other people have stated, your job is to wield your political capital to convince the governor and the state leadership to find the money to fund the service. It is table stakes for a state to support its population this way. So, thank you for your time today. Please use the time that we've given you to make that change.
Thank you.
Next is Samantha Marr, and the final speaker signed up is Grant Melgado.
Hi, my name is Samantha Marr. I had different remarks prepared for today. I testified last week in South County. I'm an MSW student at Rhode Island College up here in Providence. My internship and practicum is up here in Providence. I took the 69 to the 66 to the 20 to get here this morning. The cuts that have already happened made it difficult. I had to leave my house at 6:30 this morning to get here for a 9:30 appointment to be on time, and that's before these cuts went through. If these cuts go through, I will not be able to go to grad school this fall. I will be able to do my practicum placement. I will be able to work in Providence. I just graduated with my undergraduate in the past spring. I used the UPass program, which I know people are talking about sponsorships for specific rides. In the year 2024, the UPass with Brown, with all these other colleges, gave $670,000 towards your budget. Now, when you're training students on the 69, or as you mentioned before, are those schools going to give you that much money next year or the year after that? Has that been looked to this efficiency study? When I came in to walk in this building this morning, I ran into one of my drivers I see every day on the 65 road, and his job's going. And he's been doing that job for years. When I was at CCRI, I saw him, and now he's got to retire early because we're doing cuts. Why can't we find the money? When I take the 66 every day, I go up and past the airport. It's $12 million to work on those stupid signs that wall in private. His budget is $10 million. That's it. We can find the money. We've given you this extra time. I'm happy that you pushed the vote. My classes start in 3 weeks. I have to take out tens of thousands of dollars to be able to go to classes. If these cuts go through in September, and I have to take all these loans, I'm going to be stuck paying and not being able to go to school. There's human costs to each and every one of these thousands and thousands of riders that take RIPTA every day. Each one of them has a story. That's not showing an efficiency study. The efficiency study showed that that we should be investing more into this. I hope for a better Rhode Island, for a better future. RIPTA is great, and I would like to see it be invested more, especially with all these stories. And that's what you hear when you go to these town halls. And I think it's really important that you remember the faces, remember the people, and give people a future, give people an opportunity. I would like to serve Rhode Island as a community health worker. We have a brain drain effect going in Connecticut, Massachusetts right now because we don't have reliable resources. I hope my future patients have the ability to take transit to get to where they need to go. There's, just in the community of South County, the governor talked about how housing is a priority. A lot of the housing projects in South County are on the bus route 69 or just off of them. And if these cuts go through, those investments will not be able to be made. And then you'll get, so it's just, never mind the 2030 climate goals, never mind people not being able to get doctor's appointments, never mind, like it's not just a transit issue, it's an educational one, it's a health one, and I want people to remember that when they're making the vote next week. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Final speaker signed up is Grant Bulgarian.
Grant Bulgarian apologizes for his slow pace. I will stand. Why didn't you have a mic for today's meeting? For everybody, I was outside for the first part of the meeting, I couldn't hear. Grant Bulgarian, lifetime environmentalist, long-time traveler to that. Started being a transit advocate as a young adult. And I realized that was 1975. That was the first transportation project. You know what that means? Half a century. Anyway, so I've been paying attention. So here's my series of recommendations. Let's say no to budget cuts. General Assembly will figure it out. They don't have a special session in the fall, they'll reconvene in January. Still enough time to get rid of the extra 10 million for the current fiscal year. In the meantime, I said this before, I'm gonna say it again. It's time for RIPTA to take advantage of direct mail bus schedule to everybody who is ostensibly, theoretically, served by a bus line. It's supposedly a quarter of a mile in urban areas and a half mile in rural areas. Everybody should get a bus schedule. They get magnet to their refrigerator. I want to see RIPTA try to get more riders now than they had before Corona. And so what I'm suggesting is we probably need to direct mail to appropriate RIPTA bus schedule to every household that's served twice. So get it the first time and say, oh, no. I got the second time, oh, maybe I ought to look at this big thing. That's number one. Number two, I'm a firm believer there's no such thing as free. So I'm not in favor of free. I'm a firm believer in user fees. The universities don't provide free parking to their students, but they do, so students have to pay for parking and or figure out how they're gonna do it. But universities are providing free bus passes. That's a very commendable combination. We should encourage that for other academic entities. That's what they should do. I have numbers. You wanna have a conversation with me? I'm happy to share them with you. But that's a policy that should be followed. No such thing as free parking. Parking costs money. You gotta acquire it, you gotta pay it, you gotta stripe it, you gotta sleep in the summer, plow in the winter, ride it at night, patrol it year round. No such thing as free parking. Here we are in an era of climate change, global warming, carbon emissions, the most contributing sector to carbon emissions that stay around is what? Transportation, over 40%. So we should be going in the direction of charging for parking, doesn't have to be a big charge, a little charge, that's an incentive to get people to think about riding the bus. And I always say people are working 5 days a week, they want to do errands after work, they want to take the car because they want to do their errands as time efficient as possible. They're not doing errands every day after work, so, 1 or 2 days, 2 or 3 days, if they're not doing errands, they can take the bus. We gotta incentivize them, check it out, try it out, find out how wonderful this is, and then maybe, just maybe, they'll encourage their friends to do the same thing. I have other suggestions and recommendations, but I know my 3 minutes, I hear my 3 minutes are up. I've asked for time to speak with the chairman, kind to speak with labor leader, and, so I look forward to being able to do that, hopefully in the month of August, because this is supposedly the smaller month. So, thank you all for your concern, that's why you're on the board, and, look forward to your leadership going forward. Thanks. And I'll have you answer any questions.
Thank you.
That's all the speakers who are signed up.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn the meeting.
Have a motion? Have a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed, meeting is adjourned.